When the pages turn and the stories unfold, in the quiet space where the magic's told, a gentle melody flows like a river, it glides, inviting words to dance where imagination resides. As whispers of adventure drift through there.
Coco Baby Doll.
Chapter 1. Coco's Shadow. The cold bit into Coco's bones like a junkie fiending for a hit, sharp and unrelenting, seeping through the threadbare blankets they'd dragged from the corner of the empty living room. It was one of those Harlem winters that didn't just chill you, it stripped you naked, left you shivering in your soul. The apartment on 145th Street, once a buzzing hive of laughter and fried fish Fridays, now echoed like a tomb. Walls peeled like old scabs, exposing the plaster guts beneath, and the floorboards groaned under the weight of ghosts. No heat, no lights, just the faint glow of street lamps sneaking through the cracked window, painting jagged shadows across the pallet where Coco and Maria huddled. "Coco, get up." Maria's voice was a whisper whine, small and fragile, cutting through the pre-dawn hush like a dull knife. She sat up slow, her skinny arms wrapped around her knees, braids a wild halo around her face. At 10, Maria still had that baby softness in her cheeks, the kind that made strangers coo and slip her quarters on the train. But Coco saw the hunger etching lines there already, turning innocence into something haunted. "Lay your ass back down, Mari," Coco murmured, her voice thick with sleep and the ache of holding it all together. She pulled the blanket tighter, trapping the pitiful warmth their bodies had eked out overnight. It smelled like sweat and stale breadcrumbs, a reminder of better scraps from days gone. Ain't nothing out there but more cold. 5 more minutes. But Maria wasn't having it. Tears welled up in her big brown eyes, the ones that mirrored their daddy's, warm like aged whiskey gone too soon. "I'm hungry, Co. My stomach hurtin' like it's eaten itself." She rubbed her belly, a dramatic little circle that tugged at Coco's heartstrings every damn time. Maria didn't get it yet, the math of survival. How one honey bun today meant no lunch tomorrow, how skipping breakfast kept the lights off but the fridge empty. She was still a kid, chasing dreams in the cracks of the sidewalk, not yet scarred by the weight of what the streets demanded. Coco sighed, the sound heavy in the stillness. "I told you, baby girl. If you eat now, you ain't gonna have nothin' for breakfast. We gotta stretch it." She tried to keep her tone firm, like Mama used to before the pipe turned her eyes glassy and her hands shaky, but Maria just stared, lower lip quivering, those tears spilling over like she was auditioning for a role in their endless tragedy. "I'm hungry," Maria insisted, her voice cracking on the word, turning it into a plea that echoed off the bare walls. It wasn't just hunger talking, it was fear, the kind that whispered, "What if today she don't come back? What if we starve for real?" Coco's resolve crumbled like week-old cornbread. Aight, don't flood the place with them rivers." She sat up, the chill hitting her like a slap, goosebumps racing up her arms under the oversized t-shirt that used to be Daddy's. Fumbling in the dark, she clicked on her flashlight. The cheap one from the dollar store, beam jittery like it was scared too. The yellow glow sliced through the gloom, catching dust motes dancing like lost souls. That's when she saw it, a fat gray mouse, bold as brass, darting from her book bag slumped against the wall. It paused, beady eyes glinting in the light, whiskers twitching like it owned the joint. Coco froze, heart thumping. "Get the fuck out of here," she hissed under her breath, stomping her foot just enough to send it scurrying into a hole behind the baseboard. The book bag sagged open, spilling out crumpled homework and a half-eaten apple core from yesterday's lunch line. School was her lifeline, the one place where the world pretended they had it together. Clean uniforms, full bellies from the free trays. But even there, the stares followed. Poor things, Mama on that shit again. She rummaged deeper, fingers brushing the crinkled plastic wrap she'd stashed like buried treasure. First, the bread, two crusty heels swiped from the cafeteria, tough but filling, hidden in her sock during the chaos of dismissal. Then, the real score, a pilfered honey bun from Mr. Lee's corner store on Lenox. She'd done it on impulse yesterday, heart pounding as she palmed it while he turned for a customer's lotto ticket. Sticky cinnamon swirl, glazed with that fake sweet icing that lied about comfort. It was a risk. Lee had eyes like a hawk, and word got around fast in the block. But Maria's smile was worth every skipped heartbeat. "Here," Coco said, unwrapping the bun and handing it over like it was gold. Maria's face lit up, tears forgotten, snatching it with grubby fingers. She bit in deep, icing smearing her chin, moaning like it was the finest shit in Harlem. "Thanks, Co!" "You the best big sis ever." Crumbs tumbled onto the blanket as she devoured it, legs kicking in delight, lost in the sugar rush. For that moment, the world shrank to the taste. Sweet, gooey escape from the gnawing void. Coco watched her, a half-smile tugging at her lips, but her chest tightened like a fist. She closed her eyes, leaning back against the wall, the cold plaster kissing her spine. "Where you at, Mama?" The question burned silent, a prayer she wouldn't voice aloud. Baby doll. That's what Daddy called her, back when love was a verb, not a ghost. Tall and fierce, with hips that swayed like trouble and laughter that filled rooms. She'd been their queen, frying pork chops till the oil popped like fireworks, braiding their hair with stories of better days down south. But that was before the pipe, before the nights Baby doll stumbled in reeking of burnt dreams, eyes darting like she was chasing shadows only she could see. Last week she'd swept through like a hurricane, scooping up the last bits of value. Daddy's old gold chain, the TV with the cracked screen, even Maria's stuffed bear from the county fair. "Mama gon' be right back, babies," she'd slurred, purse bulging, door slamming behind her. Maria had wailed for hours, clutching the empty spot on the couch, but Coco knew better. She'd learned young. Junkies don't keep promises, they keep highs. Coco had hidden their clothes that night, stuffed the school uniforms under the loose floorboard in the hall, the one with the nail poking up like a warning. Baby doll's paws were quick, but Coco was quicker, outsmarting the monster that wore her mother's face. Without those outfits, how would they face Miss Jenkins' roll call? How would they blend into the sea of kids who had roofs that didn't leak and mamas who packed lunches? School was their armor, the thin shield against child services sniffing around the block like dogs. And God, she missed Daddy. Nard. The name alone warmed her, a flicker in the frost. He was built like a oak tree, broad shoulders from hauling freight cross-country in that big rig, 18 wheels rumbling like his laugh. A real working man, the kind the block envied, up at dawn for his routes to Philly or Baltimore, home with paychecks fat enough for new kicks or a family trip to Coney Island. He'd spoil Baby doll rotten, red roses on the kitchen table, whispers in her ear that made her blush like a schoolgirl. "My queens," he'd call them, scooping Coco and Maria up, spinning them till the room blurred with giggles. But one rainy Tuesday, he didn't make it home. Slipped behind the wheel somewhere south of Richmond, they said. Exhaustion from too many miles, too little sleep. The cops showed up at the door with condolences and a folded flag, but no answers. Baby doll shattered then, hope leaking out like blood from a fresh wound. The pipe found her quick, a false savior in the glass, turning grief to ash. Life flipped from hell to the hell ever since, bills stacking like accusations, neighbors whispering those poor girls, and Coco, at 15, stepping into shoes too big to fill. Maria finished the honey bun, licking her fingers with a satisfied smack, oblivious to the storm in Coco's head. "Co, when Mama comin' back?" She said she'd bring McDonald's, with the apple pies. Coco forced a grin, ruffling her sister's braids. "Soon, Mari. Real soon. But till then we holdin' it down, right? You and me against the world." Maria nodded, burrowing back under the blanket, her small hand finding Coco's. "Yeah, against the world. But as the first gray light of dawn clawed through the window, Coco stared at the ceiling cracks mapping out their fate like veins. The mouse scratched faintly behind the wall, a tiny rebellion in the quiet. She squeezed Maria's hand tighter, steeling herself for the day ahead. School, side glances, the endless hustle to keep the wolves at bay. Baby Doll might drift back on a whim, high and hollow-eyed, or she might not. Either way, Coco was the anchor now, roots digging deep into cracked concrete. Outside, the city stirred, horns blaring, vendors hawking coffee, the pulse of Harlem beating defiant against the cold. Coco rose, folding the blanket with careful hands, tucking away the bread for later. Sacrifice wasn't taught in books, it was carved in the gut, one skipped meal at a time. And as she helped Maria into her uniform, faded but clean, a small victory, she whispered a vow to the empty room. We gon' make it. Somehow. But deep down, in the frost-bitten corners of her heart, Coco wondered if making it meant surviving, or just delaying the fall. Chapter 2. Cracks in the Armor. The school bell clanged like a bad omen, ripping through the morning fog that clung to the streets like regret. Coco gripped Maria's hand tighter as they navigated the gauntlet of 145th, sidewalks slick with yesterday's slush, potholes pooling black water that splashed up like accusations. Bodies jostled past, suits with briefcases barking into phones, old heads in wool caps nursing thermoses of bootleg coffee, a junkie nodding out against a lamppost, his coat frayed at the edges like his nerves. Harlem in motion, a river of hustles and heartaches, where every corner held a story sharper than a switchblade. Look, Miss Pearl's got the hot plates out already. Maria tugged free, pointing across the avenue to the stoop where Pearl reigned supreme, her iron grill sizzling with bacon edges, crisp as autumn leaves. The air thickened with grease and smoke, a siren call that twisted Coco's gut. Pearl, with her salt and pepper cornrows and smile wide as the Hudson, was the block's unofficial mama, slipping extras to the broke, trading gossip for greens. But today, Coco's pockets echoed empty, the $2 from yesterday's bottle hustle already burned on bus fare. Keep walkin', Mari. We ate, remember? That honey bun's still dancin' in your belly. Coco steered her sister onward, ignoring the pull in her own stomach, the hollow growl that matched the distant rumble of the A-train underground. School was 3 blocks up, past the bodega, with the bulletproof glass, scarred like a prizefighter's face, and the mural on the rec center wall, faded kings and queens from the old days, Malcolm's glare judging the passers-by. Maria pouted, but fell back in step, her scuffed sneakers slapping the pavement in rhythm with Coco's worn Jordans, hand-me-downs from a cousin who'd outgrown trouble faster than style. But it smells like heaven, Co. Like Daddy's cookouts. Her voice dipped low, wistful, pulling at the threadbare seam of Coco's composure. Nard had manned the grill like a general, flipping burgers with flair, hollering orders while Baby Doll danced barefoot in the grass clippings, hips swaying to the radio's old-school soul. Yeah, well, heaven's got a line today, Coco muttered, forcing levity into her tone. She hated how Maria's questions poked at the bruise of memory, reopening wounds she'd duct-taped shut. Daddy's cookouts were relics now, faded Polaroids tucked in her book bag like contraband. No more smoky afternoons with the neighbors spilling over fences, kids chasing water from the hose in arcs of summer rain. Just echoes, and the sharp sting of what-ifs. They hit the crosswalk just as the light flipped, dodging a livery cab that honked like it owned the soul of the city. Across the street loomed PS 197, its brick facade tagged with fresh graffiti, bold letters screaming, "Rise up," in dripping red, half erased by the janitor's bleach brigade. The playground buzzed already, little ones shrieking on swings that creaked like old bones, older kids clustering in cliques, trading whispers and sidelong glances. Coco scanned the crowd, spotting Tasha by the chain-link fence, her braids swinging as she shadow-boxed the air, laughing with that infectious bark that cut through the chill. Tash! Maria broke free again, darting toward her bestie like a moth to flame. Tasha scooped her up in a bear hug, spinning her till giggles erupted, braids flying wild. At 11, Tasha was all elbows and attitude, the kind of girl who could talk her way out of detention or into a free Slurpee. Her mama worked doubles at the hospital, so she roamed freer than most, a pint-sized scout in the urban jungle. Coco hung back a beat, letting the joy wash over her like stolen sunlight. Tasha was solid, had shared her lunch more times than Coco could count, covered for her when the teachers sniffed out the home front drama. But envy flickered unbidden. Tasha's uniform was crisp, no frayed cuffs or patched knees. Her lunchbox bulged with PB&J and fruit cups, not pilfered crusts. "What up, sis?" Tasha called, setting Maria down with a flourish. "You looking like you wrestled a bear and lost. Rough night?" Coco shrugged, flashing a grin that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Nothing a algebra test can't fix. You come into the game Friday? Coach say we need shooters." Basketball was her escape hatch, the court a kingdom where size didn't matter, only speed and smarts. She'd sink threes like poetry, the net swishing clean, drowning out the noise for those stolen minutes. Tasha nodded, but her eyes sharpened, flicking over Coco's too thin frame. "Yeah, bet. But you eatin' right, looking like a ghost in that wind." Before Coco could deflect, the yard bell shrilled again, herding the swarm toward the double doors. Maria hugged Tasha quick, then bolted inside with the kindergarten wave, her backpack bouncing like a heartbeat. Coco lingered, watching till she vanished into the throng, that fierce protectiveness coiling in her chest like a spring. One day she'd get Maria clear of this, somewhere green, with porches that wrapped around houses, not stoops scarred by stray bullets. The middle school wing was a zoo by comparison, lockers slamming like punctuation to the chaos, kids hollering over the din of squeaky floors and distant shouts from the gym. Coco wove through, head down, book bag thumping against her hip. But midway down the hall, a shadow fell, literal and loaded. Jamal, all 6-foot swagger and fade so fresh it gleamed, leaned against the wall like he owned the lease. His crew flanked him, low chuckles rumbling as he zeroed in on her, that slow smile curling like smoke. "Yo, Coco, you ghosted me after practice yesterday. What, my jump shot too fine for you?" His voice was velvet over gravel, teasing but edged with something real. Jamal lived 2 floors up in their building, the one with the intact windows and Mama who baked banana bread on Sundays. They'd grown up trading kicks in the hallway, him pulling her braids till she swung back, but lately the air crackled different, his eyes lingering, her pulse skipping like a scratched record. "Man, please. Your form's ass, hookin' left like you drivin' in traffic." She sidestepped, but he matched her, close enough she caught the mint on his breath, the clean scent of laundry that hers hadn't seen in weeks. His laugh boomed, drawing stares, but he dropped the flex, voice softening. "For real, though. You good? Heard your spot's dark again. If you need—" "I don't." The words snapped out sharper than she meant, a wall slamming down. Needing was a crack in the armor, an invite for pity or worse. Folks meddling, calling in the suits from downstairs with their clipboards and cold questions. Jamal's brow furrowed, hurt flickering before he masked it with a nod. "Aight. But the offer stands, see doors open." He bumped her shoulder light, retreating to his pack, but the echo of his concern trailed her like a tailwind. Class dragged like wet cement, Miss Rivera droning on fractions, the chalkboard a battlefield of numbers that blurred in Coco's vision. She doodled in the margins instead, jagged cityscapes, a queen on a throne of cracked stoops, Maria's face haloed in stars. Hunger clawed back mid-lesson, a dull throb that made her pencil slip. The girl next to her, Keisha, slid over a granola bar under the desk, chocolate chip, half-wrapped, no questions asked. Coco mouthed thanks, breaking it slow, savoring the nutty crunch like contraband luxury. Small mercies, the kind that stitched the day together. Lunch was the real gauntlet, the line snaking through the cafeteria, trays clattering under fluorescent buzz, the air thick with mystery meat and overboiled greens. Coco loaded up on the freebies, cornbread square, apple bruised but whole, claiming a spot by the window with Tasha and the crew. Laughter erupted in waves, stories flying. Who got suspended for vaping in the bathroom, the new kid's wild accent from Jamaica. But Coco's mind wandered, gaze drifting to the payphone in the corner, its cord dangling like a noose. She'd called the corner store last night, Lee's gravelly voice on the line, asking if Baby Doll had swung by. Nah, child. But if she do, I holla lies or truth, it didn't matter. The ache was the same. What if Mama was holed up somewhere, trading flesh for fixes, her fierce sway reduced to a transaction? The thought soured the cornbread in her mouth, turning comfort to ash. Afternoon blurred into dodgeball thwacks and hallway hustles, the final bell a mercy that unleashed the tide. Coco snagged Maria from aftercare, her sister's artwork clutched like a trophy, a crayon sun over stick figure sisters, labeled Us Against the World in wobbly letters. Pride swelled, hot and fierce, as they hit the street, the sun dipping low, painting the brownstones in bruised purples. But halfway home, the air shifted, tires crunching slow on the curb, a Crown Vic idling like a predator. Child services, plates screaming official, the social worker's face a mask of practiced concern behind the wheel. Coco's blood iced over, yanking Maria behind her like a shield. Keep walkin'. Act normal. But Maria froze, eyes wide on the car, whispering, Co, that's the lady from last time. The one with the questions. The window rolled down, Ms. Hargrove leaning out, her bun tight as her smile. Coco? Maria? Just checking in, girls. How's everything at home? Her voice dripped honey over steel, eyes scanning their uniforms, the way Coco's hand trembled on her sister's shoulder. Fine, Coco lied smooth, stepping forward to block the view, heart hammering a war drum. Mama's working late. We good. But Hargrove's gaze lingered, probing like fingers in wounds. You know you can call if you need anything. Day or night, she handed over a card, pristine white against the grime, before the Vic peeled off, taillights winking like threats. Maria clung closer as they hurried on, the block closing in, stoops alive with evening rituals, dominoes clacking, bass thumping from open windows. She gon' take us away, Co, like Tasha's cousin? Her voice quavered, small fists bunching in Coco's shirt. Nah, baby. Not on my watch. But the vow rang hollow, cracked by the what-ifs swarming like roaches in the dark. Home waited, its shadows longer now, the apartment a fragile fort against the creeping siege. As they climbed the stairs, creaking underfoot, smelling of cabbage and faint weed, Coco unlocked the door with shaking hands, the chain rattling like laughter turned sour. Inside, the chill greeted them first, then the mouses skitter in the walls, a tiny echo of their scramble. Maria dropped her bag, flopping onto the pallet with a sigh. I'm starvin' again. What's for dinner? Coco forced a smile, rummaging for the saved bread, spreading it thin with yesterday's peanut butter scraped from the jar's ghost. Royal feast, princess. Eat up. But as Maria nibbled, content in the dim, Coco's eyes fixed on the card in her pocket, its edges sharp as a promise broken. The armor held, for now, but cracks spiderwebbed wider, and the fall loomed closer, whispering her name in the gathering dusk. Chapter 3. Echoes in the Asphalt. Street Jones moved like the block breathed, pulse steady, eyes everywhere, a 17-year-old calculus of risk and rhythm etched into his sinew. He'd clocked more winters than most twice his age, the kind that hardened you faster than concrete under a jackhammer. Hustling since 13, when the game found him orphaned in the after-school shuffle. Orphaned not by death, but by a system that chewed up foster kids like loose change. By 15, he'd flipped his first pack, nickel bags of mid-grade haze that bought him kicks and a burner phone, whispers of respect from the old heads who nodded like uncles he never had. Now, at 17, he was the vein, the heartbeat thumping low through 145th, veins feeding the fiends who chased ghosts in glass stems, the junkies who paid in crumpled fives for a fleeting throne. He eased the black M5 BMW to the curb, the engine's purr dying to a sigh that matched the street's midday lull. The car was his armor, low-slung beast with tinted veins and rims that caught the weak October sun like accusations. No plates yet. courtesy of a connect-up in the Bronx who owed him from a rainy night drop. Street's hand drifted instinctive to the Glock tucked in his waistband, the cold steel a lover's promise against his spine, 9mm scripture for a sermon in survival. He patted it once, ritual, like blessing the dice before the roll. Stepping out, the door thunked solid, leather soles hitting pavement scarred by too many pursuits. Nothing to the lookout perched on the stoop across the way. Lil Ray, all of 14 with a hoodie pulled low like a crown of thorns. Ray nodded back, subtle as a blink, eyes scanning the flow. The bodega mama haggling over plantains, the elder shuffling dominoes under the awning, the stray cat slinking through alley shadows like it knew the score. Clean, the nod said. No heat on the horizon. Street exhaled slow, fishing the burner from his pocket, thumb hovering over Big Daddy's contact. His little brother, 16 going on bulletproof, built like a linebacker with a grin that disarmed marks faster than a blade. Pull up with the work, Street would murmur, code for the bricks vacuum-sealed in Daddy's backpack, enough to flood the building's veins for the week. The spot upstairs, third-floor walk-up with boards over the windows, was their pharmacy. Fiends lining up quiet after dusk, trading desperation for dime rocks that kept the rent paid and the wolves at bay. But the street had other plans, always did. A scuffle of heels on asphalt yanked his gaze left, Baby Doll barreling down the block like a storm cloud unchained. She was a sight, light-skinned specter in a faux fur coat 2 sizes too big, edges frayed like her nerves, the kind of pretty that crack had clawed into hollows. Cheeks once flushed with laughter, now gaunt as winter branches, lips cracked from the pipe's hot kiss, but those eyes, hazel flecks like buried treasure, still held a flicker of the queen she'd been. Tall, hips that swayed even in ruin, braids swinging wild like Medusa's warning. Fiend or not, she moved with a grace that turned heads, a ghost of allure in the grind. Street. Street, baby, hold up. Her voice cracked high, breathless, laced with the gravel of last night's high-scraping bottom. She clutched his arm, nails bitten to nubs digging in like anchors, breath reeking of burnt plastic and cheap menthols. Up close, the track marks spiderwebbed her forearm, purple veins mapping a war zone under the sleeve. He stiffened, hand ghosting the Glock again, scanning her face for the tell. Cop plant? Setup? Or just the usual frenzy? What it is, doll. You lookin' like you seen the devil hisself. Street kept it light, but his posture shifted, broad shoulders coiling, ready to melt into the crowd or draw if the wind flipped foul. She leaned in, whisper frantic, eyes darting to the intersections like a cornered doe. They been circlin' the block, Street. Undercover pigs heavy last night, Tahoe shadows creepin' slow, lights off but engines hummin' like they waitin' on you. White boy leadin' 'em, Jones or some shit, callin' your name like he own it. I seen 'em from the stoop, posted up by Lee's, binoculars glintin' in the street lamp. You gotta bounce, baby, ain't safe. Her words landed like buckshot, scattering his calm. Street's jaw tightened, mind racing the board. Cops on the scent meant tails on the drops, wiretaps humming silent in the walls, the whole operation one snitch away from cuffs and cavities. He'd danced this jig before, last summer when a rival flipped for a plea. But Doll? She was block folklore, loyal in her haze, tipping scales for scraps or a hit on credit. Fiends talked, sure, but she sang gospel when it counted, her mama bear instincts bleeding through the fog. He nodded once, sharp, gratitude masked in cool. Appreciate the heads up, Doll. Oh, you. But before the words settled, the growl cut through, tires chewing curb like teeth on bone. 2 black Tahoes materialized from the ether, no sirens, but doors flying open like Judgment Day. 4 shadows piling out in tactical vests, Glocks drawn and gleaming under the sun. Get the fuck down, Jones! The white detective barked it from the lead, a bull-necked Irish ghost named Hargrove, no relation to the social worker sniffing Coco's trail. But fate loved its ironies. Face flushed red as his temper, badge flashing like a curse. His partner, a stocky Latino with a mustache like a broom bristle, flanked left, knee dropping heavy on Street's back as he hit the deck. cheek kissing grit that tasted of diesel and defeat. Baby Doll sprawled beside him, a mule escaping her throat as cuffs snapped cold around her wrists, the coat riding up to expose thighs bruised like overripe fruit. The block froze in tableau, Ray vanishing into the alley like smoke, the bodega door slamming shut, dominoes clattering forgotten on the stoop. Street's heart thundered, Glock pinned useless under his belly, mind inventorying the play, burner in the cup holder, work stashed in the false panel behind the seats, spot cleaned that morning by his cousin's ghost crew. No prints, no residue, just echoes of powder long vacuumed to oblivion. Doll's tip had bought them hours, maybe days. The Connect had scrubbed it surgical after her frantic call from the payphone at dawn. Hargrove's knee ground deeper, breath hot on Street's ear. "We got you this time, kid. Product, gun, the works. Buildings hot. Fiends singing like birds." His voice dripped venom, the kind reserved for black boys who dared the throne, but Street stayed silent, face schooled blank, letting the asphalt etch its lesson. They tore the M5 apart, panels ripped, seats flipped, trunk yawning empty like a lie exposed. Nothing. Zilch. The white boy's scowl deepened to thunder, partner muttering curses in Spanish as they padded down the building's vestibule, kicking in the unmarked door to the stash flat. Echoes of boots on stairs, drawers yanked, mattresses flayed. Minutes stretched to eternals, the street holding its breath, fiends peeking from curtains like wary crows. Clean. Immaculate. Doll's whisper had been the scalpel, carving out the rot before the blade fell. Hargrove stormed back, face a mask of fury, uncuffing them with a shove that sent Street stumbling. "Lucky day, Jones!" "But we're watching. One slip, and you're mine." The Tahoes peeled out, gravel spitting like spite, leaving the block to exhale in shards. Street rose slow, dusting his jeans, the Glock a secret weight reclaimed. Doll pushed up beside him, rubbing wrists raw as fresh burns, eyes wide but victorious, a spark cutting through the glaze. She was talk, light-skinned allure twisted by the pipe, body that could have turned heads in boardrooms or ballrooms if the streets hadn't claimed her first. Attractive in fragments, the sway in her step, the laugh that bubbled rare and rich, but crack had hollowed her out, turning fire to flicker, leaving a shell that hustlers like Street fed for loyalty's sake. "Thanks, doll," he said low, slipping a folded 20 into her palm. Enough for a rock and a meal, or a bus ticket if the itch ever broke. "Oh, you one for real. Next re-up you eat free." His eyes held hers, probing for the abyss, but she just grinned, chipped tooth flashing, pocketing the bill like salvation. "Nah, Street. We family out here. Block don't forget." She swayed off then, coat flapping like wings clipped, disappearing into the alley, toward whatever hole called her queen for the hour. Street watched, till she blurred, a pang twisting unfamiliar, pity, or the ghost of his own mama, lost to the needle before he learned her laugh. He fired up the burner, Big Daddy's line crackling alive. "Change of plans, lil' man. Lay low, pigs sniffin'." The street resumed its hum, heartbeat steady under his ribs, but the echo lingered. Doll's warning, the clean escape, the debt unpaid. In Harlem's ledger, favors compounded like interest, and Street Jones knew. One day, the scales would tip, calling her name back from the shadows. For now, he slid into the M5, engine roaring defiance, vanishing into the vein that never slept. Chapter 4. Threads in the Concrete. Jamal Hayes slouched against the chain-link backstop of the rec center court, the late afternoon sun slanting low like a lazy accusation, gilding the chain links in fool's gold. At 16, he carried the block's blueprint in his bones, broad like his daddy's unfinished dreams, quick like the alley cats that dodged the blue lights. The ball thumped rhythmic against the asphalt, a heartbeat he controlled, weaving crossovers that blurred defenders into afterimages, Euro steps that kissed the rim sweet and sure. Basketball was his scripture, the hoop a confessional where sins of temptation dissolved in sweat. But even here, in the sacred geometry of the three-point arc, the streets whispered temptations, hooks barbed with easy green and borrowed swagger. He'd drained a fadeaway jumper, the net whispering hush as it sliced clean, when the chain link rattled, a shadow slipping through the gap like smoke through fingers. Street Jones materialized, all coiled panther in his black hoodie and fresh Nikes, the M5 idling curbside like a dormant beast. No entourage today, just the two of them, echoes of 1,000 pickup games that had forged blood oaths in chalk lines and playground dust. Jamal caught the ball mid-bounce, palming it still, a half grin cracking his facade. "Yo, Street, thought you was laying low after that pig parade this morning. Doll tip you off again?" Street's laugh was low thunder, devoid of mirth, as he vaulted the fence with effortless grace, landing light as a promise. He snatched the ball mid-air, spinning it on his finger like a planet in orbit, the tattoo on his knuckles, block life inked crude but proud, flashing in the light. "Word travels faster than you run that fast break, Jay." Yeah, Doll came through, clean as a nun's conscience, but them badges circling like vultures means somebody's tongue loose. "You hear anything in the halls? Schoolyard snitches?" Jamal leaned back against the backboard, the metal cool through his jersey, mind tracing the invisible threads that bound them. Cousins by blood, brothers by block, Street's mama and his own had grown up thick as thieves in the same project stairwells, sharing fried bologna sandwiches and secrets under the same leaky roofs. When Street's pops ghosted for a bid upstate, it was Uncle Ray, Jamal's old man, the freight hauler with hands like hams, who'd slipped him his first burner. Not for the game, but for safety calls home. "Family first," Ray would grunt before the cancer hollowed him out last spring, leaving Jamal to inherit the weight, bills stacking like indictments, a little sister eyeing community college catalogs with eyes too wide for the math. But Street? He'd flipped the script early, 13 and feral, turning grief to grind while Jamal chose the court, the grades, the illusion of escape. They weren't the same vein, but the artery ran deep. Street slipping him 20s for gas money that bought sneakers and school lunch, Jamal turning blind eyes to the shadows that trailed his cousin after dusk, the faint crinkle of product in back pockets during block barbecues. It was a pact unspoken. Street fed the beast to keep the family fed. Jamal stayed clean to be the one who got out, pulling strings for scholarships and scouts who saw potential in his jump shot, not the zip code etched in his fade. "Nah, nothing solid," Jamal said, reclaiming the ball with a chest pass that hummed true. "Just the usual. Kids bragging about packs they ain't flipped. Girls chasing clout with IG lives from the stoop. But Coco? She was ghost today, eyes like she carrying the whole building on her back. Heard Baby Doll swept through again, cleaned out the spot like a twister. Left the girls high and dry. Street's spin slowed, the ball dropping to his side with a resonant thud, his face shuddering like storm clouds rolling in. Baby Doll, doll to the fiends, the fractured queen who'd once braided his hair with stories of jazz dives down in the village, back when her laugh could chase shadows from a room. She'd been auntie to them both, the fierce auntie who'd fronted Ray on lotto tickets and slipped Street his first sip of Hennessy at 15, toasting to men in the making. But the pipe had rewritten her gospel, turning guardian to ghost, her highs a carousel that spun the block's innocence into the fray. Coco and Maria, those little queens upstairs, Street had watched them grow from toddlers chasing pigeons to warriors rationing crusts. Coco's fire a mirror of Doll's uncracked days. He dribbled once, hard, the echo sharp as regret. "Doll's my cross, Jay. Warned me about the heat today straight from the abyss. Owe her my neck, but she out here pawning her soul for stems. And them girls. Coco thinks she holdin' it solo, but she slippin'. Saw her dodgin' Hargrove's Vic yesterday. Social worker bitch sniffin' close. If ACS swoops, they scatter like roaches. Maria too young for the system. It'd chew her pretty." Jamal nodded, the weight settling heavier, a stone in his chest that no layup could dislodge. He'd seen it in Coco's eyes that morning in the hall. The flicker of fortress cracking, her deflection a shield thinner than tissue. That pull toward her wasn't just the spark of young fire. It was the block's gravity, drawing him into orbits he'd sworn to escape. Street was the vein, pulsing product to the desperate. Doll the fracture, leaking light into dark. Coco the anchor, tethering it all with grit that bordered on grace. And him, Jamal Hayes, the outlier, caught in the web, tempted to dip a toe in Street's tide for quick fixes to the rent, to shield Coco's world with borrowed muscle, but knowing one splash could drown them all. "Coach got scouts comin' Friday," Jamal said, voice steady but threaded with the unsaid. "St. John's sniffin' for wings. If I ball out, maybe pull strings, get Coco a tutor hookup, or slide Maria into that after-school joint on the hill with the real meals. But Street, you know I can't front like I'm blind. If you need eyes in the school, say it. But don't pull me under." Ray's ghosted haunt me sideways. Street's gaze held, cousin to cousin, the silence thick as the haze from a fresh blunt. He clapped Jamal's shoulder, grip firm as vow. "You the clean one, Jay. Always was. Ray raised you right, out the mud, not deeper in. But family's the rope, we don't cut it. Watch Coco's 6 for me. If Doll circles back, holla. And Friday, drain 'em dry, make the block proud." The ball sailed back, arc perfect, and Jamal caught it clean, launching a tray that kissed nothing but twine. Cheers erupted from the gathering knot of kids on the sidelines. Future veins in the making, eyes hungry for heroes. Street melted back through the fence, a nod to the lookout across the way, the M5 swallowing him whole as it prowled off into the gloaming. Jamal rebounded his own shot, the rhythm resuming, but the threads tugged tighter now, connections quiet calculus, binding the broken in Harlem's grand design. Across the avenue, in the fourth-floor window of the leaning brownstone, Coco watched the court from afar, Maria's head pillowed on her lap, both of them tracing shapes in the condensation of a pilfered ginger ale. The figures blurred, Jamal's silhouette leaping, Street's shadow fleeting, but the pull was magnetic, fates interlacing like veins under skin. The block didn't forgive loose ends, it wove them into nooses or nets, and in the gathering dusk, Jamal Hayes felt the first real snag, wondering if salvation meant cutting free or diving deeper into the weave. Chapter 5. Fractures in the Flame. The door didn't knock, it clattered, a frantic rattle of brass and bone against the frame, splintering the midnight hush like glass under heel. Coco bolted upright on the pallet, heart slamming ribs like a caged bird, the flashlight beam slicing wild through the ink-black room. Maria stirred beside her, a small whimper threading the air, braids splayed across the pillowcase like dark rivers on a map of surrender. 3 a.m, the clock on Coco's phone lied, its face cracked from a drop last winter, but the glow marked time cruel and true. Harlem slept uneasy beyond the walls, distant sirens wailing like banshees, the low thump of bass from the after-hours spot on St. Nick, the eternal scratch of mice plotting coups in the plaster veins. Footsteps staggered in the hall, uneven as a drunkard's vow, heels scraping wood like nails on chalkboard. Coco's blood turned syrup thick, instinct coiling her muscles, hand clamping over Maria's mouth, gentle but iron. "Shh, baby. Stay still. It's her." The words were breath, not sound, a prayer warded against the inevitable. Baby doll, mama. The hurricane in heels, swirling back from whatever abyss had swallowed her whole, pockets lighter than her promises, eyes heavier than the sins she dragged in tow. The knob twisted slow, deliberate, like it knew the fear it birthed. The door creaked open on hinges that wept rust, spilling a sliver of hallway fluorescence into the gloom. A sickly yellow that caught the edges of Doll's silhouette first, tall frame swaying like a palm in gale, faux leather skirt hitched high on thighs scored by the night's toll, the fur coat from last week's pawn raid hanging off one shoulder like a defeated flag. Her face emerged next, a mask carved from fever dreams, light skin ashen under the residue of powder, lips smeared crimson from whatever lipstick lied about glamour, hazel eyes pinwheeling wild, pupils blown black as the pipe's betrayal. Cocaine episode, Coco clocked it instant, the twitch in her jaw, the hyper gleam that turned whispers to war cries, the desperate hunger that mistook daughters for currency. "Babies, my queens," Doll slurred, voice a velvet rasp laced with chemical silk, door banging shut behind her like a coffin lid. She lurched forward, shedding the coat in a heap that pooled shadow at her feet, the air thickening with her scent. stale smoke, and synthetic vanilla, undercut by the metallic tang of sweat and something fouler, like regret distilled. Her braids hung limp, unwashed sentinels framing a face that might have launched ships once before the rock turned her prow to wreckage. Mama's home. Missed y'all so bad. Look what I brought. Surprise for my girls. Maria bolted up now, fear melting to fragile hope, rubbing sleep from eyes still round with the day's innocence. Mama? You back? With McDonald's? Apple pies? Her voice piped high, arms outstretched, the uniform from school twisted around her like a straitjacket of normalcy. At 10, she chased the myth still, the fairy tale returns, the feasts conjured from thin air, blind to the monster puppeteering the marionette. Doll's laugh cracked like brittle ice, too loud for the room, echoing off the bare walls as she fumbled in her purse, a battered faux Gucci, zipper gnashing teeth. Out came the lie, a crumpled McDonald's bag, grease-stained and empty, save for a lone straw wrapper, pilfered from some curbside trash like fool's gold. Better than pies, baby. Mama got the real magic. But we gotta go get it. You coming with me, Mari? Just you and me, like old times? Coco too big now, staying up worrying like a old lady. But you, my little shadow, we gon' dance tonight. Coco's gut twisted, a knife's slow turn as Doll's hand shot out, long fingers bedecked in chipped acrylics, snatching Maria's wrist with a grip that belied the shake. Pull tug. The girl's yelp pierced sharp, small body jerking like a fish on line. Mama, hurts! Help! And there it was. The fracture, the flash of memory uncoiling like smoke from a fresh burn. Coco was 8 the first time, maybe 9, the apartment still humming with Daddy's ghost, the fridge stocked with his overtime hauls. Doll had swept in then too, eyes feral from the powder's grip, purse fat with nothing but IOUS. Come on, Baby Doll Jr., Uncle Ray got the good stuff waitin'. Just a quick visit, sing for him, dance a lil, and we eat like queens. Uncle Ray wasn't kin, just a shadow in a motel off the Bruckner, his gifts the rocks that kept Doll afloat, his hands the toll she paid in flesh and silence. Coco had gone, frozen puppet in a sundress too small, the favors a blur of revulsion and rote, kisses that tasted of ash, touches that branded shame into her skin. She'd come back hollowed, Doll oblivious in her high-frying eggs like the world hadn't tilted off axis. The scar ran deep, a vein of rage Coco armored with silence, vowing Maria would never trace its path. Not tonight, not ever. No! Coco exploded up, a whirlwind of fury and frame, slamming between them like a wall of will. Her hands clamped Doll's arm, nails digging crescents into the soft underbelly, twisting hard enough to wrench a hiss from her mother's throat. Let her go, Mama. You ain't taking her nowhere. Not like this. Not like me. Doll's head snapped back, eyes narrowing to slits of disbelief, then fury, the cocaine fueling a fire that burned reason to cinders. The fuck you mean like you? Ungrateful little bitch. I birthed you. Fed you from these tits when you was screamin'. Now you gon' stand there judgin' while I scrape for us? Mari's comin'. She knows the play. Don't you, baby? Tell your sister. Uncle's waitin'. Got the white for Mama, toys for you. It'll be fun, like a game. Maria wrenched free, scrambling back against the wall, knees to chest, tears carving tracks through the confusion. I don't want to go, Mama. It's dark out. And Uncle, he smells funny. Coco says stay inside. Too young, her mind a garden untrodden by thorns, piecing the puzzle wrong. Uncle as bogeyman from bedtime tales, not predator in plain clothes. She clutched her stuffed bear remnant, the one Doll hadn't pawned last time, its button eyes witnesses to the fray. The room erupted then, a tempest in miniature, Doll lunging, free hand clawing for Maria's collar, nails raking air inches from braids. Coco shoved back, body-checking her mother against the doorframe with a thud that rattled the chain. Get off her! You hear me? This ain't your house no more, not when you high like this, sellin' pieces of us for your poison. Her voice broke raw, fists flying now. Not wild swings, but targeted, the street smarts she'd gleaned from alley scraps and big sis vigils. One connected, palm flat to Doll's cheek, the slap echoing like judgment, skin blooming red under the flashlight's merciless glare. Doll reeled, staggering, but rallied feral, cocaine's gift of endless fight, grabbing a fistful of Coco's t-shirt, yanking her close enough to spit venom. You think you better? Huh? Acting like your daddy's ghost all noble and shit. He left us, Coco, dead in a ditch 'cause he couldn't hack it. I'm out here surviving, keeping this roof over your head with what I got. And you? You'd let us starve for your pride? Her free hand swung low, nails gouging Coco's arm, drawing beads of blood that welled hot and accusing. The fight devolved to tangle, bodies grappling in the dim, grunts and gasps punctuating the chaos. Maria's wails a siren's underscore. Coco broke free first, breath heaving, shoving Doll to the floor in a sprawl of limbs and curses. Survivin'? This ain't life, Mama. This is eatin' us alive. You tried it on me. 8 years old, remember? Making me earn your fix from that pig in the motel. I ain't forget. And Maria? She too pure for your filth. Get out. Sleep it off in the hall if you gotta. But you touch her again, and I swear, blood or not, I'll end this. The words hung, a guillotine blade mid-fall, Doll's chest rising, falling in ragged symphony. For a beat the haze cracked, hazel eyes clearing to pools of something human, grief raw as fresh meat. Coco, baby, I didn't... But the lie died unspoken. Cocaine's tide pulling her under, body slumping against the wall, head lolling like a puppet cut loose. She crawled then, not for the door, but the pallet's edge, curling fetal amid the blankets, sobs muffled into the fabric that smelled of her daughter's sweat. Maria crept forward, hesitant, touching Doll's shoulder with a trembling hand. Mama, you okay? Innocence's blade, twisting deeper. Coco pulled her back, cradling fierce, the blood on her arm a war paint stripe drying to crust. She will be, Mari. Go back to sleep. I got you. But sleep was a thief that night, evading as she sat vigil, back to wall, eyes on the door's chain, latched now, a flimsy bulwark against the storm's return. Doll's breaths evened to snores, the episode ebbing like a receding flood, leaving debris. The purse spilled open, a stray rock glinting like a false diamond, the echo of favors unspoken. Dawn clawed gray through the cracks, painting the room in bruise hues. Coco rose stiff, joints protesting the night's toll, tucking Maria in with whispers of school day lies. Doll stirred once, murmuring apologies to ghosts, but didn't wake, her body a battlefield, battles lost to the white devil. As Coco dressed, uniform donned like chainmail, the mirror caught her reflection, 15 going on ancient, eyes hardened to flint, the scar from years back throbbing anew. She'd stood strong, a colossus in miniature, but the fracture ran deeper now. Trust shattered like the door's frame, love a casualty in the crossfire. Maria stirred, oblivious in sleep's mercy, but Coco knew, the streets took in inches, but family wars claimed miles. And as she slipped out, leaving Doll to the dregs, the block's pulse thrummed indifferent below, whispering that some shadows followed, no matter how fierce the fight. Chapter 6. Switches in the Swarm. Eskimo Black wasn't built for the foot chase. Short king stacked like a vault of midnight, 5'6" of dense muscle and denser schemes, skin dark as the underbelly of a moonless Harlem night, pockets eternally pregnant with Benjamins folded crisp as fresh threats. At 38, he'd clawed the crown from the concrete coliseum of New York's dope game, not with height or flash, but with a mind like a chessboard mid-checkmate, moves layered 10 deep, contingencies for the contingencies. Kings bowed low in the Bronx backrooms, uptown lieutenants wired tributes to his encrypted drops, and even the federales whispered his alias like a curse in unmarked vans. Eskimo, cool as permafrost, black as the void he peddled, didn't sling street level. He orchestrated symphonies of snow, kilos cascading through runners like veins in a leaf, his hands clean as a surgeon's after the cut. But today, the board flipped foul. Pimp, His ironclad mane, a lanky specter with a grill that gleamed like fool's gold and loyalty forged in federal bids, had ghosted the pickup. No text, no burner ping, just a cold echo where the Escalade should have idled at the Pelham Bay stash house. Black didn't sweat. He adapted. Slipped the 2-kilo bricks, vacuum-sealed bricks of Colombian confetti, worth a cool $250 uncut, into a pilfered kid's book bag snagged from a daycare drop last week. Blue canvas, faded Paw Patrol patches mocking the absurdity, straps worn soft from tiny shoulders. He hopped the 6 train at rush, shedding his tailored wool like a snake's skin for a hoodie 2 sizes loose, blending into the parental parade shuffling northbound, bleary-eyed mamas herding ducklings, nannies thumbing TikToks, the air thick with juice box spills and yesterday's curry. 145th Street Station spat him out into the morning swarm, the book bag slung casual over one shoulder, its weight a conspirator's whisper against his spine. School hour alchemy, kids in uniforms like urban infantry, backpacks bobbing in waves toward PS 197 and beyond, a human shield thicker than any crew. Black wove in, pace measured, nodding at a crossing guard like he belonged. The bricks nestled innocent amid imagined crayons and crumpled permission slips. 2 blocks to the handoff spot, a bodega cooler humming false life behind bulletproof glass, where a shadow runner would ghost the load for the midday flood. But the tail flickered first, a white boy in chinos and a Mets cap too clean for the block, lingering by the newsstand, eyes locking too long in the bodega's reflection. Hargrove's crew, Black clocked it instant. The lead detective's lapdog, radio earpiece bulging like a tumor, hand ghosting a holster under the windbreaker. Eskimo's pulse didn't spike. It recalibrated. He quickened, not bolt but surge, merging deeper into the kid current, ducking a gaggle of third-graders chasing a rogue kickball, shoulders brushing a teen with AirPods blasting drill beats. The tail matched, 20 paces back, murmuring into his collar like a prayer gone sour. More shadows congealed then, unmarked Crown Vics nosing curbs like sharks scenting blood, doors cracking to spill plainclothes wolves and fake joggers and hoodies that screamed fed. Black's mind raced the exits. Alley left too exposed, subway grate a suicide sprint, the schoolyard fence a gauntlet of witnesses. Blend harder. He hitched the bag tighter, feigning a limp like a harried uncle late for drop-off, but the circle tightened. Vicks boxing the block, tails converging like veins to a heart attack. Across the avenue, Coco Garrett clocked the chaos first, her radar tuned finer than a junkie's nose. 15 and forged in fire, she navigated the swarm with Maria's hand firm in hers, book bag thumping her hip like a second pulse, stuffed with the day's rations, pilfered cornbread heels, a dog-eared library book on escape artists, Maria's homework scrawled in bubble letters proclaiming Maria Garrett, age 10, best sis ever. The streets were her textbook, every twitch a chapter. The junkie twitching at the lamppost, the corner boy palming packs with sleight-of-hand grace, the unmarked cars that prowled like stray dogs, and this, short dude in the oversized hoodie, bag slung high like it burned, pace spiking as the whites and windbreakers fanned out like a noose. Trouble, Big T. Not her circus, not her monkeys, but Coco's code ran deeper than blood, Harlem's unspoken. You see a brother cornered, you don't look away, you maneuver. Mari, wait right here by Miss Pearl's stoop. Don't move a muscle, aight? Sis coming back quick. Maria's eyes widened, braids haloed in the weak sun, but she nodded, clutching her lunchbox like a shield, the bacon sizzle from Pearl's grill a momentary lure. Coco shrugged off her bag, light as lies, heavy with intent, jaywalking swift against the don't walk flash, weaving the crosswalk like a ghost in the gap. The short king was 30 feet off, sweat beading his widow's peak, eyes darting biblical, plagues in plain clothes closing ranks. She matched his stride from the flank, no words, no glance, just proximity engineered like fate. One fluid snatch, her hand a blur under the strap, yanking his bag free in the press of bodies, pivoting seamless to swap hers into the void. His shoulders registered the lift, a micro-freeze, but she was vapor already, melting back into the kid tide, uniform blending her into the camouflage of plaid and braids. Black felt the switch like a divine glitch, weight gone, replaced by something feather-light. The bricks vanished in a sleight he couldn't compute. What the... But no time for autopsy. The circle snapped shut, hands slamming his shoulders, Glocks whispering from holsters as Hargrove's voice barked gravel. Eskimo Black or whatever snake alias you slither under today. Hands high, bag down. We got the drop. The swarm parted like Red Sea testimony. Kids herded back by crossing guards, turned sentinels, whispers rippling. That's him? Lil dude? Black complied slow, bag-thumping pavement, face schooled to bewilderment. A masterclass in theater, eyes wide as the innocent. The wolves piled on, cuffing wrists, frisking thorough but fruitless. No iron on him, no tats screaming affiliation, just the hoodie and jeans that could have been any uncle's armor. Station House was a ritual by rote. The van ride in zip-tied silence, the mirrored room where they tore the bag like autopsy surgeons. Papers fluttered out, Maria's math worksheets, dotted with smiley stickers and eraser crumbs. A half-chewed pencil branded PS197 Supply. A bruised banana peel from yesterday's lunch line, mocking their frenzy. Hargrove's face purpled to plum, fist slamming Formica as his crew pawed through the detritus, coming up empty as a politician's promise. Talk, Black, the detective growled, leaning close enough for coffee breath to curdle milk. We know you carryin'. Runners dry up, you play mailman. Where's the snow? Eskimo leaned back, chains rattling soft, a chuckle bubbling low like magma under ice. He plucked a worksheet from the scatter, Maria Garrett, cursive looping proud across the header, addition problems solved in purple crayon. Snow? Man, you trippin'. This here's my niece's bag. Little Mari Garrett. See? Forgot it on the train this morning. Uncle E's just playing hero, getting her to school for the bell. Call the school, check the roll. She 10, braids like a crown, smile, gon' melt your badge. Y'all really gon' book me for homework duty? The room deflated, bluster to bluff. Hargrove's glare drilling holes. But the math didn't lie. No priors on a Maria Garrett flag. No bricks to parade for the DA's circus. Paperwork shuffled, alibis knotted through gritted teeth, and Black walked free by noon, cuffs shed like yesterday's skin, the station's spit hitting his boots on the stoop. Free, but fractured, the two keys of his empire adrift in the wild, ghosts in a girl's grasp. He hit the block recalibrating, burner buzzing ghosts from Pimp's last ping. Stash secure, Vicks inbound, no matter. Eskimo Black was a man of many moves, but this was quantum. A lil girl phantom, brown-skinned savior, with eyes like old souls, vanishing the load in a blink. He'd seen her bolt back across 145th book bag, his book bag, bouncing light on her shoulder, a smaller shadow trailing at the stoop. Maria. The name burned now, a breadcrumb in the maze. He melted into the luncheon flow, bodegas hawking halal carts, stoops alive with midday domino philosophy, mind mapping the hunt, school logs, block whispers, a quiet drop of cash to pearl for the girl's routine. 2 kilos didn't stay lost. They called home like wayward children. But gratitude flickered unfamiliar, a crack in the vault. That switch wasn't chance. It was calculus. Street math from a queen too young for the board. Eskimo smiled, thin, dark eyes scanning the swarm for braids and backpacks. The game resuming not as predator, but pilgrim chasing providence. Across the avenue, Coco Garrett hugged Maria tight at the stoop, the swapped bag heavy on her back, its secrets zipped silent amid her own scant treasures. What was that, Co? You stole his bag? Maria's whisper was awe-wrapped worry, eyes darting to the Vicks, peeling frustrated into traffic. Nah, baby. Borrowed. Dude needed air Coco ruffled braids, pulse still humming the heist, the bricks a mystery lump she hadn't probed. Too public. Too risky. Homework and homework, she'd bet, but the weight lied heavier, a riddle for the empty fridge later. Survival switch, you flip for the hunted, pray the hunter don't circle back. But as they hit the school gates, Coco's radar pinged residual, a short shadow lingering at the corner, gaze like a bookmark on her flight. Trouble traded hands, But in Harlem's ledger, debts accrued interest, swift as shadows at dusk. And Eskimo Black? He was coming collecting, one way or the other. Chapter 7. Payload in the Plaid. The locker door clanged shut like a judge's gavel, but Coco Garrett barely registered the echo, her palm lingering on the cool metal as if it could anchor the whirlpool churning in her gut. PS 197's halls thrummed with the midday exodus, lockers slamming in percussive fury, sneakers squeaking confessions on linoleum scarred by 1,000 rebellions, voices overlapping in a cacophony of alibis and afternoon schemes. Fractions in Miss Rivera's class had blurred to hieroglyphs, the chalk dust a veil over equations that mocked her focus. What had she done? The book bag, his book bag, swapped in that heartbeat slight on 145th, squatted innocent in the locker's belly, blue canvas zipped tight, its Paw Patrol patches leering like cartoon sentinels guarding contraband sins. She hadn't peeked, not in the crush of bodies funneling to lunch, not during the stolen moments in the bathroom stall where she'd splashed water on her face to drown the rising tide of what if. Curiosity was a luxury for girls with full fridges and mamas who packed notes and sandwiches. For Coco, it was a siren call to ruin. All day it gnawed, subtle at first, a itch under her uniform's stiff collar, escalating to a phantom weight dragging at her shoulders even without the straps. During dodgeball in gym, she'd fumbled a catch, the red rubber ball smacking her thigh like reprimand, Tasha's laugh a distant buoy in the fog. Earth to Coco! You dreamin' about Jamal's fadeaway or what? But Coco just grinned thin, deflecting with a shoulder check that sent Tasha sprawling in mock outrage. Inside, the calculus spun, the short dude's eyes, wide with the shock of salvation, the unmarked cars peeling empty-handed, their frustration a vapor trail in the rear view. She'd clocked the streets Morse code young. Hustlers didn't carry crayons. That bag hummed heavier than homework, a riddle wrapped in recess innocence. By last period, English with Mr. Patel droning sonnets, she'd traced invisible maps on her notebook. Drop it in the river? Pawn it at Lee's for a meal streak? Or bolt to the precinct, trade it for a shield against Hargrove's sniffing Vic? Each path forked to fallout. Cops don't reward street switches with halos. They cuff the hands that help, blind to the nuance of necessity. The final bell mercy killed the torment, unleashing the swarm into the October bite, leaves skittering like fleeing informants across the yard. Coco snagged her sister's hand at the gate, Maria chattering about finger paint masterpieces, oblivious to the Shadow Sister cast, book bag reclaimed from the locker in a fluid snatch, slung low like a guilty secret. The walk home stretched elastic under paranoia's gaze, every horn a harbinger, every sidelong stare from stoop sentinels a tale in disguise. She scanned reflections in bodega glass, doubled back at the hydrant on Lenox, pulse sinking to the distant A-train's subterranean growl. No tails, no white boy windbreakers lurking by the halal cart, no Tahoes idling with predatory purr. Just Harlem's usual pulse, vendors hawking bootleg DVDs, elders philosophizing over checkers, a junkie weaving sonnets to the ether. Clean, for now. The brownstone loomed like a weary sentinel, stairs creaking under their ascent, the hall's cabbage and weed bouquet a homecoming rite. Maria tugged at her sleeve the second the door clicked shut, eyes round as the apple she'd scarfed at lunch. "Co, where's my bag? The one with my drawing for Miss Jenkins? You said we'd show it after school." Her lower lip pooched, the betrayal of swapped sameness hitting like a gut punch to her 10-year-old trust. "Later, Mari. Sis needs a minute. Go draw another, make it bigger, with dragons guarding the castle." Coco's voice feathered soft, but her hands trembled as she shrugged the bag free, dropping it to the pallet with a thud that echoed too accusatory in the empty room. Maria huffed, flopping to the floor with crayons in revolt, but the sketch pad's rustle faded to white noise as Coco knelt, zipper teeth gnashing like reluctant confessions. She peeled it slow, breath held hostage, the flap yawning open to reveal. Air evacuated her lungs in a silent heist, knees buckling as she caught herself on the wall, vision tunneling to pinpricks. 2 bricks, vacuum-sealed tombs, pristine white powder compressed to lethal density, taped surgical and smug in their anonymity. Cocaine. Kilos, not grams. The street's white whale, the alchemy that turned corner boys to kings and fiends to phantoms. She'd known the gospel from whispers, Mama's glassy-eyed vigils, the rock pipes glinting in alley glows, streets' shadows peddling dreams in dime bags. But this was empire scale, a payload that could flood blocks or bury bearers. Her mind reeled the math. Hundreds of thousands in uncut promise, enough to bait raids or buy burrows. Panic bloomed hot, a fist in her throat. Cops find this? We're ghosts in the system, Maria in foster mills, me in juvie chains. Sell it? I'm Doll 2.0, pipe calling my name in the mirror. The room spun, plaster cracks mocking her vertigo. Maria's crayon scratches a fragile counterpoint to the roar in her ears. First mind, Jamal. Upstairs, 2 flights and a universe away. His door the portal to cleaner air, his eyes the map to hustler hieroglyphs. He knew the veins without walking them, cousin to the block's pulse, offering lifelines she'd slapped away like insults. But this wasn't Pride's playground. This was payload peril, and Jamal Hayes was the decoder ring in a cipher of snow. She bolted without a word, bag clutched to chest like a swaddled bomb, leaving Maria's "You okay?" to chase shadows down the hall. Stairs blurred underfoot, heart a war drum sinking to the creak, 3rd-floor landing materializing like dubious salvation. Jamal's door, peeling green, brass 3B tarnished but intact, yielded to her frantic knock, swinging inward on his frame, tall and tousled post-shower, towel-rubbed fade gleaming, tank top clinging to the V of a frame honed on quartz and caution. Surprise flickered first, eyes widening at her ghost-pale face, then softening to that quiet concern he'd masked in hallway deflections. Coco? Lights off again? I told you, doors... Words died as she thrust the bag forward, unzipped maw gaping like accusation. Jamal, I swapped it. This morning. Short dude on the block. Pigs closing in. Thought it was, I don't know, homework. But this... Her voice cracked, hand gesturing helpless at the bricks, the air between them thickening to revelation. Jamal's towel dropped forgotten, leaning in slow as if the contents might combust. His breath hitched, a sharp inhale that aged him a decade, eyes tracing the seals, the faint cocaine sheen mocking under the hall's bare bulb. Recognition hit like a fast break to the gut, pure, unstepped, the kind that built vaults like Eskimo blacks. Jesus, Coco, that's keys. Real weight. His voice dropped octave low, door easing shut behind her like a vault-sealing fate, pulling her into the dim of his apartment, cluttered sanctuary of sneaker boxes and scholarship posters, the faint scent of banana bread his mama's ghost had baked before the hospital claimed her. He paced then, 3 strides to the window overlooking the stoop, peeking curtains like a general scouting siege lines. Surprise transmuted to strategy, the clean kid facade cracking to reveal the block's undercurrent he'd navigated on tiptoe. This wasn't a lunch share or a dodge of Hargrove. This was quantum shift, 2 kilos in a queen's quiver, a switch that could rewrite ledgers or launch funerals. His life pivoted on the fulcrum, ignore it, and the street's gravity crushed them piecemeal. Touch it, and the game claimed his hands. Ray's dying whisper, "Stay out the mud, son," echoing hollow. But Coco? Her eyes, flint-forged and fracturing, tethered him inexorable. Family's rope, street's creed. No clean exits now. "Stay put," he murmured, snatching his burner from the coffee table. A scarred relic, 1 bar blinking like a heartbeat. Thumb flew across keys. No code, just the raw. Pull up. Emergency. Now. Street's line crackled alive on the first ring, that low rumble of a voice threading the wire. "Jay? What's good? Street. 3rd floor. Coco's here. You need eyes on this yesterday." "No more." Trust's shorthand, the kind that bypassed pleasantries for peril. Click. The line went dead, but the air hummed aftermath, Jamal turning back to her, hand ghosting her shoulder in anchor. "He comin'." we figure the play. But Coco, this bag? It chose you for a reason. Streets don't swap random. She sank to the couch's edge, bricks a leaden lapful, Maria's distant query filtering through the floorboards like a siren's plea. Wondering, warped to waiting now, the payload a Pandora's parcel in plaid, its whispers promising empires or endings. Upstairs, in the haze hushed redoubt, lives interlaced tighter, Jamal's clean arc bending toward the vein, street's shadow inbound like reckoning. And Coco? She clutched the riddle close, IQ of the streets whispering, in Harlem's grand calculus, salvation starts with the switch. But survival demands the sale. The door would knock soon, fates converging in the thrum, the block's heartbeat quickening to the rhythm of risk, unbound. Chapter 8. Veins of Reckoning. Eskimo Black's condo perched like a raven's eyrie on the 30th floor of a midtown monolith, glass walls framing Manhattan's spire jungle in a panorama of indifferent gleam, towers stabbing the smog like accusatory fingers, the Hudson a silver serpent coiling toward oblivion. The office space within was a vault of calculated austerity. Teak desk scarred by phantom ledgers, walls lined with Rothkos that bled abstract fury, a humidor exhaling Cuban ghosts amid the faint ozone tang of encrypted servers whirring in the subfloor. Black slouched in the Eames throne, short frame swallowed by leather that creaked like old bones, dark eyes fixed on the burner, a disposable relic, its screen a blank oracle, while his mind dissected the morning's slight, the girl's phantom snatch, the bricks adrift in urban ether, his empire's artery nicked but not severed. Pimp's vanishing act gnawed deeper than the Fed's empty raid. Loyalty was the invisible ink of his ink, and betrayal bloomed in invisible wounds. The phone vibrated then, a scorpion's rattle slicing the hush, screen igniting with a ghost number that mapped to shadows. Black palmed it deliberate, thumb hovering like a guillotine before flipping it open. Static hissed prelude, then the voice. Pimp's baritone, gravel over silk, laced with the false calm of cornered kings. Yo, we need to talk. 4 words, a scalpel's incision. Black's jaw didn't twitch. He was permafrost incarnate, conclusions deferred like interest on a blood debt. But recognition hit visceral, the timbre that had whispered drops from Queens to the Keyborough Bridge, the man who'd taken bids in his stead, emerging leaner, meaner, grill intact as a vow. Talk, Black rumbled, voice low as a sub-basement echo, leaning back till the chair groaned capitulation. No pleasantries. In their lexicon, they were luxuries for the living. Pimp's breath crackled the line, ragged as a fresh stitch. That pickup. Shit went sideways. Feds swarming the bay like hornets, tails on my Escalade from the Whitestone. Had to ghost. Dumped the whip in Flushing, hopped a gypsy cab to my girls in Bed-Stuy. Ain't no snitch play. I burned 3 burners just circling back. You good? Heard the pigs bit air this mornin'. Black's free hand drummed the desk once, a Morse code of skepticism. Sideways? Or serpentine? Pimp's excuse rang plated, the kind that plated fools with lead when the shine wore thin. Almost cost him his freedom. The image flashed, cuffs snapping in the swarm, kilos exhumed like buried indictments, a lifetime bid in Otisville's concrete crypt. Good enough to hunt P, but you know the math. Mrs. Compound. We convene. Your spot, dusk. Bring the Y, not the wind click. The line severed, burner tossed to the blotter like a spent casing. Black rose fluid, shrugging into a cashmere overcoat that draped his compact frame like a shroud of solvency, pocketing a snub-nose .38, matte black, no flourish, the equalizer for kings who walked among ants. The address burned in his mind's ledger, 145th and Lenox, 3rd floor walk-up, the girl's haunt traced via Pearl's loose-lipped gossip, and 100 dropped on a bodega, CCTV loop. The switch wasn't salvation, it was a summons, and Eskimo Black answered debts in person. Harlem swallowed him whole by the bridge's shadow, the M5's growl mutating to a livery Lincoln's anonymous purr, Black in the back like a sultan incognito, eyes dissecting the rear view for phantom tales. The block unfolded familiar, stoops etched with domino divots, halal steam veiling the faithful, the eternal chess of corner eyes tracking his disembark. He hit the brownstone steps 2 at a time, compact legs pumping piston precise, the .38 a cold comma against his ribs. But rhythm faltered at the second landing. A figure ahead, young hustler silhouette ascending to the third. Broad shoulders coiled under a hoodie, stride measured but weighted, the subtle hitch of hand-ghosting waistband. Heat. Black clocked it, instinctive, the predator's sixth sense. The kid moved like loaded dice, every step a feint toward the roll. Slow now, black melted shadow, footfalls silenced to whispers, the hallway's cabbage pall a camouflage for the crawl. Downstairs in the Garrett's fragile fort, the air thickened to gunpowder prophecy. Jamal Hayes loomed over the pallet, eyes locked on the unzipped maw of the book bag, the bricks gleaming blasphemous under the naked bulb, a payload that dwarfed the room's meager empire of crumbs and crayon ghosts. Street Jones flanked him, cousin's blood a live wire between them, his face a storm front, jaw granite, eyes thunderheads parsing the peril. He'd materialized minutes prior, burner tucked away, the emergency's gravity pulling him from a dice game on the stoop like a hook through gills. Keys, Street had breathed, palming one brick reverent, the vacuum seal crinkling like forbidden scripture. Pure as virgin snow. This ain't corner weight, Jay. This is Eskimo's vein. Black himself. Girl, you just painted a bullseye on your back bigger than the Apollo marquee. Coco stood sentinel by the door, Maria curled fetal on the pallet, thumb in mouth, a regression to the womb's illusion, oblivious to the orbit of oblivion. 15 and forged, Coco's frame vibrated taut, the morning's slight replaying in neural loops, the snatch, the swap, the salvation that soured to serpent. Downstairs, she'd murmured when Jamal pressed, voice a thread in the fray. Just me and Mari. Mama, she ghosts more than haunts these days. The words hung, a confessional in the chill, her eyes flicking to the chain, flimsy as faith, rattling faint against the wall's protest. Street nodded once, decisive as a blade's drop, slinging the bag over his shoulder like a reluctant heirloom. Pack light, queens. Essentials only, IDs, uniforms that bear if it fits. Whoever birthed this snow, big business. Eskimo Black don't send postcards, he brings pressure, crews, cleanups, the kind that leaves chalk outlines and questions. We bounce to my aunties in the heights, lay low till the math settles. Jamal, you ride point, scout the stoop. Jamal moved first, stuffing a duffel with the grim efficiency of evacuation drills. Maria's sketch pad, Coco's library card, a half jar of peanut butter scraped to desperation. Coco knelt by her sister, braids a curtain for the whisper. Adventure time, baby girl. Like Daddy's road trips, Philly runs with the big truck Maria stirred, eyes fluttering open to confusion's dawn, clutching the duffel like a life raft. The room devolved to hushed frenzy, drawers yanked, socks balled, the pallet stripped bare as a battlefield's bones, when the stairs creaked ominous, a prelude to collision. Up the landing, fates forked fatal. Street crested the third, duffel thumping his thigh, Glock palmed low in the hallway's throat. Black, shadow stalking from below, rounded the turn simultaneous, their eyes locked in the stairwell's dim confessional, recognition a spark to tinder. Street's mind flashed the brick's origin, the short king's silhouette from block lore. Eskimo. Fuck. Black's gaze pierced the hoodie, clocking the heat, the duffel's telltale sag. The thief. Armed. Mine. Time fractured. Pistols bloomed in tandem, Street's Glock barking first, a muzzle flash etching hellfire on the banister, rounds chewing plaster in hungry divots. Black's .38 answered symphonic, snub-nosed, spitting leaden verse, the report a thunderclap that rattled doors like judgment's knock. Bullets caromed wild, one grazing Street's shoulder, blooming crimson through denim like a rose in haste, another shattering a hall runner's frame, glass shards raining confetti on the fray. They danced death's tango, Street diving low behind the railing, returning fireblind but biblical, Black backpedaling surgical, his compact frame a blur of evasion, coat flapping like raven wings. Echoes thundered, the building awakening to pandemonium, doors cracking to peepholes' slits, a distant wail piercing the din. Maria's cry filtering up from below, Coco's shout a raw counterpoint. "Street! Mari! Down!" Sirens wailed nascent in the distance, Harlem's chorus to the chaos, blue lights birthing on the horizon like vengeful stars. Black retreated a beat, reloading fluid in the shadow, mind a ledger balancing blood. The girl. The switch. Retrieve or raise. Street pressed, Glock emptying brass hymns down the stairs, the duffel clutched like a talisman, the bricks within a Pandora's pulse. The hallway hung suspended, acrid with cordite incense, fates entwined in the smoke, Eskimo's empire ascending, streets vain defending, Coco's world teetering on the precipice below. Pressure indeed. The block's heart stuttered, wondering if Salvation's switch had flipped to slaughter, or if, in the blast's afterglow, a new calculus might yet emerge from the carnage. Chapter 9. Empires in the Emerald. 3 weeks carved Coco Garrett into a stranger she glimpsed in the vanity's merciless glow, a full-length sentinel in the master bath that whispered luxuries she'd only scripted in stolen library romances. The mirror framed a girl on the cusp, 15, sharpened to 16 in the forge of fortune's flip, braids twisted fresh in a high pony that grazed the collar of a cashmere sweater soft as sin, courtesy of street's endless drip. Her reflection stared back, cheeks flushed not from hunger's hollow, but from the rogue strawberry in the fridge downstairs, endless and unrationed, the kind that burst juice like confessions on the tongue. Who this, she wondered, fingers tracing the curve of collarbone no longer etched by bone's betrayal. The silhouette softened by plates piled high, waffles drowned in syrup rivers, bacon crisp as autumn leaves, Maria's giggles a soundtrack to feasts that filled not just bellies, but the voids, where worry once nested like roaches in the wall. She'd braced for the auntie's stoop in Washington Heights, sagging couch under a tattered awning, the faint reek of oxtail simmering eternal, cousins piled like cordwood in shared spaces that hummed with the block's echo. But Street's Lincoln had prowled past the familiar veins of Uptown, crossing bridges into the emerald sprawl of Westchester, where lawns stretched like green conspiracies under sodium lamps, houses hunkered colonial and smug behind white pickets that lied about fences. His spot was a brick Tudor on a cul-de-sac's hush, 2 stories of reclaimed glory, mortgage paid in powder's promise, the deed a hustler's sacrament slipped from a foreclosed ghost, no stoops scarred by stray lead here, just a driveway broad enough for the M5's gleam, a garage hiding the arsenal that kept the war at bay. Coco and Maria claimed the upstairs suite, queen bed vast as a promise, duvets thick with down that swallowed them whole, the room a sanctuary of lavender walls and walk-in closets, yawning empty but expectant, shelves begging for the Barbies Maria clutched like talismans from the old world's wreckage. Abundance was the drug now, laced sweeter than any stem's lie. Fridge doors yawned to galaxies, cartons of almond milk frothing fresh, racks of ribs vacuumed for eternity, ice cream tubs in flavors that danced on the tongue like forbidden sonnets, rocky road for the rough days, mint chip for the mirages of peace. Maria bloomed wild in it, 10 going on timeless, her laughter a rebellion against the palate's ghosts, legs kicking under breakfast bars as she devoured pancakes stacked like victory pyramids. Look, I made a tower, taller than Daddy's truck." And Coco would grin, the ache of Nard's rumble fading to a fond scar, her hand ruffling braids now oiled with shea from the Sephora Hall Street, dropped casual as a tip. But plenty bred its own paranoia, a whisper in the plenty. This ain't forever, snow melts even in empires. Street Jones was the architect, 17 wielding the blueprint like a blade, his hustle a symphony of shadows that flooded the veins without flooding the lights. The bricks, Coco's unwitting heist, Jamal's relay, the stairwell symphony that painted the walls with lead's graffiti, had seeded a surge. Street flipped surgical. Cuts stepped pure for the fiend's frenzy. The rest laundered through ghost drops in Jersey motels and Bronx laundromats, 20s blooming to 50s under the grindstone of his grind. Money rained hand over fist, stacks bundled in the safe behind the basement panel, rubber-banded testaments to the take, rent settled, utilities humming anonymous, a tutor dispatched for Maria's multiplication tables that turned tears to triumphs. He moved like a specter in the suburbs' camouflage, dawn runs to the city in tinted escalades, evenings melting back with takeout from joints that didn't know his name. The Glock ever a ghost at his waist, chambered for the war that simmered ceaseless? Eskimo Black's shadow stretched long, a specter stitched from the stairwell's smoke. The bullets exchanged that night, Streets Gray's a puckered pink reminder on his deltoid, Black's coat shredded like confetti, had etched vendetta in the ether. Whispers filtered back via Jamal's schoolyard scouts. Tahoes circling the old block like vultures denied carrion. Pimp's crew ghosting safe houses with eyes peeled for braids and bravado. A runner clipped in Crown Heights as a message in blood. They played Fortress here. Cameras winking from the eaves. Burners swapped weekly like skins. Grocery runs staggered to dodge patterns. Street taught her the catechism. Eyes low, queens. Suburbs blind to the block, but the block remembers. Coco nodded, but her mind mapped deeper, the mastermind uncoiling like a queen's gambit in the quiet nights, staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin while Maria snored soft symphonies beside her. The drugs would dwindle, math merciless, even in windfalls. 2 keys stretched thin would ghost by Thanksgiving, the pipeline pinched by Black's blockade, the fiend's frenzy a feast that starved the future. Then what? The question gnawed elegant, a calculus of contingencies. Flip the last grams and flee to Auntie's for real? Or forge a vein untapped, something clean as Jamal's jump shot but lucrative as lead? Street had slid her the cut last Tuesday, $4,000 in a velvet pouch, crisp portraits of Franklin winking like conspirators, dropped on the kitchen island with a nod and a, "Your play, see, you birthed the board." She'd palmed it reverent, the weight a warp from the honeybun hustles, visions dancing of Maria's braces, or a down payment on dreams down south. But genius idled not on gratitude. It orchestrated. The unimaginable bloomed from that idleness, a vine through concrete. Coco waited for Street's dusk return, the tutor aglow in the cul-de-sac's hush. Maria tucked early with a chapter from Matilda, the orphan queen who'd outwitted the wicked with wit alone. When Street breached the mudroom, shedding his shell like molted armor, she met him at the island, the pouch a paperweight on the marble. "We end the war," she said, voice steady as the blade she didn't carry, eyes locking his thunderheads. "Not with heat. With handshakes. Get word to Black. Me and you want to sit down, neutral ground. No crews, no clips. Business." Street froze mid-pour, bourbon bottle hovering like a held breath, the liquid's amber swirl mocking the moment's gravity. "Coco, Eskimo don't sit for pups. That hallway hymn?" He took it personal. Bullet for bullet, blood for the bricks. Man's permafrost. Thaws for no one's thaw. But his protest frayed at the edges, respect threading the rift. Her, the palate phantom turned polymath, who'd switched salvation from the swarm and stared down Doll's demons without flinching. He saw it then, the board redrawn, not in Rage's red but Reason's ink. Word went via ghosts. Jamal's whisper to a neutral ear in the rec center's underbelly, a bodega cipher passed to Pimp's periphery. Eskimo Black didn't swallow slights like sacrament. The graze on his coat burned biblical, a scar on the silk that whispered weakness to the wolves at his flanks. But business was the Bible, etched deeper than grudges, and these 2 young motherfuckers? Heart like lions in the lair, brains like labyrinths that lured you lost before the lunge. The girl, braids and bravura, snatching keys from jaws of blue, had flipped fate's coin midair. The boy, vein of the block, who'd defended the drop with lead's liturgy. Respect rippled reluctant, a thaw in the frost. Pups with pedigrees, daring the den for detente. Black's burner hummed affirmation by midnight. Coordinates dropped like a gauntlet. Midnight, 3 weeks to the day. A warehouse off the Bruckner, fogged in the Bruckner's breath. Tables set for truce under halos of sodium truce. Coco lay awake that night, the queen bed a throne too vast for vigil. Maria's warmth a tether to the tangible. Suburbs sang lullabies of leaf rustle and distant trains, but her mind marched martial, contingencies cascading, Black's bluff or bite, streets steel at her flank, the cut's calculus compounding to coalitions or coffins. She'd unrecognize herself again by dawn, queen not just in quilts, but in the quiet calculus of crowns. The war simmered to summit, heart and brains the bridge over blood's bayou, and in Harlem's grand geometry, suburbs be damned, the unimaginable became the inevitable. Two hustlers, one phantom payload, daring the king to deal. Chapter 10. Alliances in Amber. The warehouse off the Bruckner loomed like a leviathan exhaling rust and regret, its corrugated flanks scarred by decades of salt-kissed gales from the East River's indifferent breath. Sodium halos bled through fogged clear-story windows, casting the cavernous gut in a jaundiced pallor, pallets stacked like forgotten altars, chains dangling from rafters like the nooses of obsolete industry, the air thick with diesel ghosts, and the faint, acrid tang of welders long silenced. Neutral ground, the ether had decreed. No crews cluttering the corners, no shadows slinking from the loading docks, just the principals at a scarred oak slab dragged center stage, flanked by folding chairs that creaked like confessions under weight. Midnight's mantle draped the proceedings, the Bruckner's hum a low dirge underscoring the calculus of crowns. Eskimo Black arrived first, a compact sovereign in bespoke merino wool the shade of gunmetal dusk, his frame swallowed by the overcoat's folds but radiating the gravity of one who bent light to his will. He claimed the head of the table unhurried, .38 ghosted in the small of his back, a talisman, not temptation. Eyes dissecting the space like a jeweler appraising facets in flawed diamond. Pimp shadowed him at the flank, lanky and leonine, grill subdued to a whisper under the lights, but Black waved him to the perimeter. This was parley, not parade. The pups would come, or the ether would claim them, either outcome a ledger entry in the grand abacus of ambition. Street Jones materialized from the gloom next, a specter in black denim and tactical fleece, the grays on his deltoid, a faint pink scripture beneath the sleeve, healed but hymned in memory. His stride was metronomic, calculated as the chambering of a round, Glock holstered low but eloquent in its eloquence. Jamal trailed a beat behind, clean-cut sentinel with the scout's wary grace, eyes mapping exits like a cartographer charting fault lines. No entourage for the vein of the block. Street's muscle was myth made manifest, etched in the ether's whispers. The hallway hymn that had bloodied black silk, the suburban fortress that mocked the manhunt's maw. He took the chair opposite, posture a throne of coiled nonchalance, but his eyes, those calculating orbs, polished obsidian flecked with the block's unyielding fire, betrayed the machinery beneath. Probabilities parsed, contingencies cascading, the board foreseen 5 moves to perdition or paradise. Coco Garrett entered last, a queen incognito in high-waisted jeans that hugged the sway she'd inherited from Doll's unfractured days, a cropped leather jacket nipping the chill, braids pinned in a crown that defied the warehouse's decay. Maria was states away in the tutor's cradle, guarded by a vetted ghost, a great aunt with a switchblade smile and stories to drown the sirens. At 15, Coco moved with the deliberate poise of one who'd traded pallets for paradigms, the 4 grands echo a subtle ballast in her step. But her gaze was the fulcrum, unblinking, unyielding, a mastermind's lens refracting the room's geometries into vectors of victory. She slid into the seat beside Street, legs crossing casual as a checkmate, the blueprint unrolled in her mind's vault, inkless, indelible, a fractal of burrow conquest etched in the synapses of survival. Black's smile was a scalpel's edge, thin and surgical, as he steepled fingers over the slab, nails manicured to moons of indifference. Pups. Bold calling court in the carcass of the old world. That hallway serenade? Echoes louder than you'd credit. But ether's a merchant. It trades slights for shares. Lay your gospel. I'm all ears, if not empires. Street leaned forward first, voice a low rumble of river stones, his calculating eyes locking Black's permafrost with the precision of a gunsmith sighting true. Ain't here for hymns, or hauntings. That switch, Coco's calculus, saved your throne from the blue jaws. We flipped it forward, not foul, but war's a widowmaker, bleeds the veins dry, leaves the block a ghost town of grudges. You want the keys back? We negotiate the keys to kingdoms. Black's chuckle was permafrost cracking, a fracture in the facade. He knew, in the marrow of his machinations, that the scales had tipped. These weren't corner curs yapping at heels. They were catalysts, young alchemists transmuting mishap to manifesto. He was not in charge. Not truly. Not in this recast calculus where pups presumed the pantheon. The ether hummed complicit. Pimp's ghosting had cracked the crown, the feds' swarm a symptom of fissures widening, and here in the Bruckner's belly sat the serum, pure product pulsing in streets' perimeter safe, muscle mythologized in the block's ballads. Coco unfurled then, her voice a velvet verdict, laced with the lilt of Harlem's unbowed heirlooms, each syllable a stiletto slipped between ribs of reluctance. Blueprint simple, Mr. Black. Symbiosis over slaughter. Your pure dope, uncut Colombian clarity, the kind that carves loyalty from the fiend's frenzy, steps 'em clean without the crash. Streets muscle, veins etched in the block's bedrock, lookouts loyal as blood oaths, drops ghosted faster than ghosts. Marry 'em, and we metastasize. Harlem first, your snow flooding the stoops till the independents kneel or evaporate. Queens next, Astoria alleys, flushing phantoms, we choke the supply lines, push the Cubans right out the picture. Those Miami mules with their stepped shit and shaky crews, we eclipse 'em, eclipse the whole borough ballet. You orchestrate the import, we execute the empire. No fronts, no feuds, just 50-50 on the flood, your cuts cascading untouched. She leaned in, the warehouse's chill forgotten, her blueprint blooming holographic in the air between. Maps of murmured meetups, pipelines plotted in phantom ink, projections parsed to the penny. Harlem's harvest doubling quarterly, Queens quartered like conquest, the Cubans' cartels crumbling under the weight of their own watered wares. Street's eyes calcified confirmation, a silent second to her symphony. The duo a diptych of daring. His grit the ground game, her genius the grand design. Black affected the ponder, chin steepling deeper, dark eyes drifting to the rafters as if divining decrees from dangling chains. A theater of thespian torment, the pause a ploy to reclaim the reins. But the ether betrayed him, heart like lions, brains like labyrinths, these motherfuckers moved the middens of markets with mere metal. The hallway's heat? A holocaust averted by her hand. The key's kinship a karmic kickstart to cascades he couldn't conjure solo. Pimp's periphery prickled, shadowed at the dock's edge, his grill a glint of guarded glee. But Black's mind marched mercenary. Business, the Bible's boldest verse. Coco's hand ghosted then, palm upturned in offering, a black velvet pouch sliding across the oak like a serpent shedding scales. It yawned open under his gaze. 40 grand in hundreds, crisp as commandments, bundled in rubbered reverence. Her cut's consecration, the pouch a paean to partnership. Seed money, for the first wave. No IOUs, no ifs. We build burrows on this bedrock. The deal sealed in the slide. The ether exhaling relief's ragged breath. Black's fingers forked the pouch, palming it possessive, the weight a warrant for wonders untold. He rose slow, compact frame unfolding to its full sovereignty, extending a hand calloused by the calculus of crowns, ink stained from ledgers, not triggers. Street clasped first, grip granite and gospel, eyes calculating the compact's contours. Coco followed, her clasp a compact of its own, firm, unflinching, the mastermind's mitt, sealing the Sabbath. 5 bricks at a time, Black rumbled. The assignment to axiom etched in amber, his voice the vault's vibration. Pure as the switch that started it. Drops dawnside, your veins verified. We eclipse the Cubans come Christmas. Queens quartered, Harlem hymned in our honor. Pimp materialized at the flank, pouch vanishing into his depths like a swallowed sacrament. the perimeter peeling shadows as the principles parted, alliances ambered in the ether, empires emergent from the embers of enmity. Dawn kissed the suburbs gold by week's cusp, the tutors' Tudor spires sentinel to the shift. Coco Garrett ghosted the garage at first light, duffel stuffed with court gear, Reeboks laced fresh, shorts cinched for the sprint, the high school girls' basketball tryouts a trinket in the trove of transformations. The team, varsity vixens scouting scouts, the court a coliseum where jumpers judged not just jump shots, but the jump from pallet to pantheon. She drained trays like truths in the prelims, Euro steps evading defenders like doubts, the coach's clipboard a convert by halftime, braids bouncing, frame firing on fuels unrationed, the luxury of exertion a lavish largesse, now that the ledger laughed at lack. Maria cheered from the bleachers, legs swinging wild over the edge, a foam finger filched from some forgotten fair, waving like a wizard's wand. "Co! You flyin' like Daddy's rig, 18 wheels to the rim." And Coco laughed, the sound a libation to the ghosts. Nards rumble in the rebound's thump, dolls sway in the swish of net, the block's beat pulsing beneath the polished parquet. Meals weren't mirages now, post-practice platters of grilled chicken and quinoa bowls, smoothies swirling secrets of sustenance. But the energy, wasted willful, poured into the pivot, the pump fake, the poetry of play that paled the palate's privations. Suburbs sang sweeter in the Sabbath's afterglow, 5 bricks blooming to bounty, streets safe swelling like a serpent shedding skin, the war's widow's weeds withered to whispers. Coco claimed the court queen, but the blueprint burned brighter, burrows bending to her bent, the Cubans' cartels crumbling under the crush. Genius idled no more. It ignited, illuminating the ledger where pups presumed and prevailed the pantheon. In Harlem's grand geometry, from ether's embers to empire's edge, Coco Garrett glimpsed the girl in the glass not as stranger, but sovereign. Meals mapped, muscles marshaled, the luxury of living large at last. Chapter 11. Flames in the Forge. The Tudor slumbered under a suburban moon, its gables etched silver against the velvet sprawl of Westchester's hush, where manicured hedges whispered secrets to the wind and cul-de-sacs curved like cradles for the complacent. Midnight's mantle draped the house in quiet dominion, the ether's symphony reduced to the faint tick of a grandfather clock in the foyer, ticking like the half-life of half-forgotten sins, and the distant susurrus of Maria's breaths from the upstairs suite, soft and steady as the tide's retreat. 10 and tucked in dreams of dragon towers and sister queens, she slumbered oblivious, the queen bed's duvet a fortress against the world's wetted edges, her thumb a talisman tucked against her cheek. Coco Garrett descended the stairs like a specter summoned, bare feet ghosting oak treads worn smooth by the house's unhurried elegy. The silk camisole she'd claimed from street's endless drip whispering against her skin like a lover's half-remembered vow. Sleep had evaded her again, the blueprint's afterglow a restless ember in her chest. 5 bricks blooming to 50, the ether's ledgers swelling with zeros that danced like fireflies in the floodlit vaults of her mind. Burrows bent, Cubans crumbled, empires eclipsed in the elegant geometry of her genius. Yet the nights gnawed at the interstices, where gratitude tangled with the ghost of want, the palate's privations transmuted not to peace, but a hunger honed sharper than any switchblade. Thirst pulled her downward, not for water but the ritual of the fridge's glow, a portal to plenty that still felt profane, its shelves a sacrament of surplus she'd once scripted only in the margins of stolen sonnets. The kitchen materialized in the gloom, moonlight slicing through French doors to gild the marble island in lunar filigree, the sub-zero humming a low area of abundance. And there he was, Street Jones, etched in the fridge's arctic nimbus like a god hewn from obsidian and ether, raiding the depths in nothing but low-slung boxers that clung like shadows to the V of his hips. The taut plane of his back a topography of muscle mapped by the block's brutal cartography, scars faint as footnotes from the hallway's heresy, the graze on his deltoid a faded apostrophe in the grammar of grit. Shirtless, he stood unadorned, broad shoulders flexing as he palmed a carton of almond milk, the liquid glugging into a glass with the casual sovereignty of one who bent the world to his thirst. No flinch at her approach. The ether had tuned him to her frequency long ago, a radar etched in the rhythm of their rise. Hymns of heat and hymns of harvest, the millions cascading like manna from the margins. Her heart throbbed then, a seismic stutter in the vault of her ribs, not from fear's frail flutter, but a fuller fire, molten and unbidden, surging through veins once rationed to survival's scrim. It bloomed low and luminous, a heat that hollowed her breath to a hush, her skin prickling as if the air itself conspired in caress. Bravery? It wasn't borrowed, it was alchemical, distilled from the dregs of deprivation into daring's pure elixir, the same audacity that had snatched salvation from the swarm, that had bartered bullets for blueprints in the Bruckner's belly. She crossed the tiles silent as sin, the camisole's hem grazing thighs sculpted by court conquests, and pressed him against the fridge's stainless skin, the carton tumbling forgotten to the floor in a milky libation that pooled like spilled starlight. Her palms splayed flat against his chest, fingers splaying over the lattice of his heartbeat, strong and sure, a metronome to the millions they'd mined from the ether's marrow. She rose on toes that trembled not with trepidation, but triumph, lips claiming his in a kiss that was conquest and communion, fierce as the first flush of empire, tender as the ether's unspoken vow. Street didn't yield. He ignited, hands bracketing her waist, with the precision of a safecracker breaching vaults, pulling her flush against the hardness that heralded his hunger, the kiss deepening to a devouring, tongues tracing treaties in the wet geometry of want. He was hers. She knew it in the marrow of the moment. The bond forged not in blood's ballad, but in the billions blooming from their blueprint, the ether's arithmetic, where alphas aligned. Her genius the lodestar, his muscle the meridian, together eclipsing the old gods of grudge and grime. She'd known it crystalline that day at the Mercedes lot, the sprawl of chrome and gleam under Jersey sunsets that bled gold into the asphalt veins. Street's Lincoln purring like a panther at the edge, his hand ghosting hers as the salesman simpered over specs. Her own money burned in her clutch then, the cut compounded to a cascade that mocked the palate's penury. But he'd waved it away with a grin crooked as fate, palming his black card like a scepter. Queens don't QC. Pick your chariot. The G-Wagon had materialized like myth-made metal, black as the block's unyielding night, red leather innards crimson as the ledger's ink, its grille a grille of guarded glory. She'd slid behind the wheel, engine roaring rebirth, and in that rumble, tires gripping tarmac like talons claiming crowns, she'd glimpsed the glyph. He was hers, not as possession, but parody, the vein to her vision, the muscle to her mind. Millions minted in the margins, but this? This was the minting of myths, two hustlers hymning the ether into eternity. Street broke the kiss, only to hoist her, effortless as ether made manifest, her legs coiling his waist like lianas claiming colossus, the fridge door sighing shut behind them in sated surrender. He carried her upward through the house's hushed halls, stairs conquered in strides that synced to the throb in her core, the air thickening with the musk of mutual mythos, sweat-slick skin and the faint vanilla of her she, the bourbon undertone of his breath mingling with the milk's faint almond echo. His bedroom awaited at the end of the master wing, a sanctum swathed in Louis Vuitton's opulent orthodoxy. Black leather walls absorbing light like secrets swallowed, gold hardware glinting like the ether's gilded greed. The king bed a vast expanse of Egyptian cotton, shadowed by a canopy of monogrammed silk that draped like a despot's decree. No palettes here, no privations, just the lavish lattice of luxury, the safe's subtle hum in the walk-in a baseline to their ascent. He lowered her to the edge like a relic reclaimed, boxers shed in a whisper of fabric to floor, his staff rising rigid as resolve. Veined marble in the moon's meager mercy, throbbing with the same unyielding pulse that had propelled their pantheon. Coco's camisole vanished in a fluid shrug, silk pooling like spilled mercury, her frame bared bold, curves carved from quartz cadence and calories cascade, skin aglow in the gold-flecked gloom, the fire between her thighs a forge long banked, but now bellowing, consuming all but the core of her craving. Street knelt before her a beat, eyes, those calculating coals, tracing her topography like a cartographer charting constellations, thumbs grazing the velvet of her inner thighs in strokes that sparked symphonies of shivers. Then he rose, guiding her back into the sea of sheets, his body blanketing hers in a geometry of grace and grit, the kiss resuming as prelude to the plunge. He placed it then, his staff breaching her fire with a slowness that was sacrament, the stretch a searing sonnet of fullness that arched her spine like a bow drawn to breaking, gasps gilding the gold-trimmed air. She consumed him, walls clenching like covenants sealed, the rhythm building from reverent rock to relentless right, hips canting in counterpoint, hands harrow his back in hymns of possession, nails etching epics into the ether's endless scroll. Street's breaths, ragged to runes, his control cracking like permafrost under polar thaw, the million's mythos melting to the mammalian, thrusts deepening to dirges of deliverance, her fire forging him anew in the furnace of flesh, sweat-slick slides sinking to the ether's unspoken score. She was his harbor and holocaust, the blueprint's blaze made carnal. He was her anchor and apocalypse, the muscle's myth made manifest. Climax crested cataclysmic, a cascade that convulsed them conjoined. Her cry a clarion cracking the canopy, his groan a granite groundswell swallowed in the crook of her neck, release rippling through him like rivers unbound, seeding her depths with the stuff of stars. They shattered and shored, bodies entwining in the aftershock's amber, the room a reliquary of their reclamation. Breaths braiding in the hush, limbs laced like ledgers locked, the ether exhaling benediction over the bond reborn. Dawn would find them fractal forged, souls sold not to ice, but its inverse, fire's fierce fidelity, the millions merely the medium for the miracle. Coco traced the scar on his shoulder in the graying light, a smile sly as strategy curving her lips, knowing the night had knighted them not just in the ether's empire, but in the intimate infinities beyond. Suburbs slumbered still, but in the tutor's tender core, two hustlers had hymned the horizon, hers, his, theirs, the rebirth ablaze that no blueprint could blueprint, no burrow could bound.
Concrete dreams on a straight line sky, she's trying to make it keep her soul alive. Mama working doubles, rent overdue. Cold world, but her heart still true. She's seen it all, sirens, spines and pain. Still walks proud through the pouring rain. Then he pulled up in that all black Benz, smiled at her like a world could bend. He said, baby girl, you too real for this scene. She said, boy, don't sell me no dream.
Hey, thanks for listening to first few chapters. Let me know what you think about characters and plot, and give me some ideal to finish book.
Now she's caught up, can't let go. Stay with me through these Harlem nights, when the city don't sleep and the truth don't lie. Love's a miss, but you feel so right. Even if we crash, I'm alright tonight. Block so cold, now she riding passenger, heart on froze. You buy her roses, promise he'll change, but the streets still whisper his name. Late night calls, he puts in the dark. He's torn between the game and her heart. But when he holds her, the world fades slow. That's the love only Harlem knows. He said, girl, you're my calm in the storm. She said, boy, keep me safe, keep me warm. Now they dancing under 125th flights. Two souls lost trying to make it by. Subway street.